Well, today I'm looking at something a little bit different. What we have here is a gramophone, a portable gramophone, made in the Soviet Union, probably sometime in the 1950s or 60s. And you'll see these on eBay a lot. They pop up. At first glance, you think, oh, must be a 102 or something like that in HMV. They're not. However, they do have a lot in common with HMV and certain Swiss portable gramophones. The story I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, what I heard is that when the USSR overran Germany, in their sector, they had the old Electrola factory. We know Electrola was at one time a subsidiary of HMV and so on and so forth for the First World War, and they continued to manufacture HMV type machines right up to the end of the war, the 106, the 102, quite a few other ones. They took the factory back to Russia, or the Soviet Union as it was then, where they proceeded to get into the gramophone making business. I mean, they had machines before that, but a lot of these were pretty much carbon copies of the 102 and certain other Electrola manufactured phonographs. Now this one, anybody that's familiar with the HMV 101 or the 102 is going to recognize certain features here that are pretty much a complete copy. Now here we go. The speed control. A little different, but it's also the same as found on the 101s and 102s. Now, this auto stop, I have no idea what they copied for that. Possibly something Swiss. The handle right here, the little fold-up handle, that is pure Swiss. All of their machines used to like to use those, the portables similar to this. That brake is classic Victor, which is what HMV used. So is the clip back there for a tone arm that looks classic HMV. And by the way, that is an orthophonic tone arm from the 102. You know, it has the large mouth, reproducer. Now, this machine had a reproducer that was pot metal. And you can imagine what happened to that. It crumbled in a million pieces, but both the HMV 5A and 5B and 16, plus all of the Victor orthophonic reproducers will fit this no problem at all. I haven't actually done anything to this yet. I've had it for several years, but I just haven't gotten around to messing with it too much. We have a turntable here that looks pretty much like a Swiss turntable. Red, of course. I'm not sure which factory made this in the USSR. I mean, we have that. You know, it probably means something, but I don't know what. I don't have a lot of information on Soviet-era gramophones. Let's take a look at the motor now. Now, the motor is not a direct copy of the HMV 102's motor, but it is very close. It's got a spring barrel with pressed-on lid like you'd find on any Swiss phonograph. It has the non-return spring on the crank, the winding handle. That is a classic HMV. We look at that governor. That looks like a 102's governor, a late 102. This one at least has the steel weights. There is another phonograph that I have, also Soviet in origin, where they used pot metal for those weights, and they're kind of getting fuzzy and crumbling a little bit. One day I'm going to have to replace them with some Victrola weights, but not this machine. I don't think that the body of this motor is pot metal. I think this is probably aluminum. It looks aluminum, feels aluminum, which is good. Steel would have been better, but it's not really necessary. It works, it does the job. You can see all the parts in there are pretty much standard for any of the 101s or the 102's motors, the number 59 and so on. Here we have, is that a brass gear? Yes, that one is brass. But if you look in there, right there in the main shaft, that is a fiber gear. Again, we're copying the Swiss here. Fiber gear. HMV didn't do that, but the Swiss certainly did. And like the Swiss machines, one day this one would probably crumble as well. Hopefully not for a good long time, because I have no idea where I would be able to source something like that. Let's look in here. Move that out of the way. Now that's cool. A nickel-plated tin horn. Look at how they did that. How nice that looks. This is the type of horn I've encountered in several Swiss machines that I've taken apart. Portables, about the same size as this or a little smaller. Very simple design. You know, it's a fold-away horn just like HMV would use, except it's open on top, and they use the motor board to seal it here. And it has little rags there, the cloth. You can see where the horn sits there. That is the top of the horn to seal it up for air leaks. Now, while this machine is definitely copying several, at least two, different types of Western machine, that is not to mean it's a piece of junk. It definitely isn't, except for the use of pot metal, but that was common in the industry. This is very well made. It's nicely put together. I haven't played it yet, but I imagine it probably plays pretty good. There's no reason why it wouldn't. It's got the right equipment for that. And it's, I guess, a sort of Rexine-like, 102-like brown fake leather cover on there. I can't see. This one doesn't just fold down like the 102s does. You actually have to release the lid stay to put it down. It's got the little HMV style design on there pressed into the Rexine. The clasp, that looks Columbia. I've seen it before on certain Japanese copies of the Columbia machines. There's no key. There's no lock. We have the needle cup right there. That's classic HMV. You see it on all the 102s. Just a really interesting machine. I've seen lots of different variations of portable gramophone on eBay pop up. Most of them selling out of Ukraine these days, but way back many, many, many years ago, I picked up my first 102 style clone, Soviet clone machine from an outfit called the Sovietsky Collection. This had to have been in the early to mid 90s, not long after the Soviet Union folded up shop, and they were pretty much selling everything that wasn't nailed down. This one company was regularly selling these right out of a catalog. Different types of machine, but they were all kind of similar, looking like a 102 clone. Love that color on there. I think this may be the only machine I have that has a red turntable felt, pretty sure anyway. And you can see it has a handle, a carry handle. Is very much like the 101s and the 102s. In fact, I'm sure if I wanted to replace that, I could put a 102's handle on there with no problem at all. It looks to be exactly the same size. I mean, this wasn't really out of character for the Soviet Union. They were known to reverse engineer things and borrow ideas from other manufacturers in Western countries and use those ideas to build their own stuff. They did it with automobiles for years before the war and after it. And other things too, everything from aircraft to, what was the famous aircraft they reverse engineered? Oh, the B-29, yes. They made a carbon copy of the B-29. Took it all apart, measured up everything, and they made their own copy of it. That was the first Soviet long-range bomber, if I remember. And to figure something a little bit different here. There's no serial numbers on this, no tag that says, you know, for spares or whatever, contact, refer to this number like you'd see on the 102s and 101s and other HMV machines. And of course, many of HMV's designs were from Victor. So, you know, they're kind of similar. That would mean that like the 100 and the 101 and the 102 HMVs, who owe their heritage, at least the cabinet, to the Victor Victrola 35. The cabinet design of the Victor Victrola 35 morphed into what would be the 100, the 101, and the 102. And apparently, a whole generation of Soviet phonographs after the war. This is roughly, it's not exactly the same size as a 102, but very, very close. It's very close. I have seen smaller. I have seen even compact ones, Soviet phonographs. I imagine there were bigger ones too. Let's take a good look at it. I am going to put this back together before I take it apart and play it. I just want to see how it plays before I take it out and clean the spring and all the other things that need doing on something that's been sitting this long. I imagine this has been sitting at least 30, 40 years, maybe longer. I don't know how long these remained in normal service in the Soviet Union and its satellite states. I'm going to guess probably longer than they did here in the West. But they're kind of a buyer beware. I know that you will see lots of them, like I said, on eBay and all of that stuff. Some of them with fairly high prices now, where we used to be $110, $90 or whatever. Now they're $300, $400, $500. You may run into more pot metal issues than you see on this particular machine. You may find pot metal in the motor. You may find, obviously, you probably will find pot metal in the reproducer. So be prepared for that if you do decide to chase one of these down. And I'm sure there are probably some that are not built as nicely as this one. It's a very, very solid wood case under there. There's no loose joins anywhere in there. The hinges are good. You may not be that lucky with whatever you get, so it's kind of buyer beware. But if you want one, that's pretty much your only shot, because I don't really encounter these in the wild at all. This machine was from eBay. My first one was from the Sovietsky. I only have 2 Soviet-era gramophones. Okay, now that's the mechanism I showed you for the auto stop. I've never seen that before, but it could be a Columbia style, one of the later Swiss styles. I'm not sure. I'd have to do a little more looking in on that one. It just doesn't look familiar to me. Trigger a memory anywhere. Oh, I was gonna crank it up a little bit. It actually spins very easily, but then it has a tiny spring. And it only wound it a few times, but I just wanted to see it. Oh, there we go. It is working. I will give it that much. It is working. And this was not, I did not import this. When I got it off eBay, it was from a U.S. seller. It wasn't from Ukraine or Russia or anywhere else. It was someone in this country. So I kind of suspect this is probably another one of the phonographs sold by the Sovietsky collection back in the 90s that just ended up for sale because somebody couldn't play it with a broken reproducer. They didn't realize they could substitute a locally available one to make it play. And with the unpleasantness going on in Ukraine, I cannot guarantee, of course, that if you do order something from there, that you will get it. And it doesn't get blown up somewhere along the way. Who knows? But they're kind of an interesting addition to any collection of portable gramophones. This one, I think, had the little rubber feet on it, kind of like the later HMV 102s did. Bottom's, a little scuffed, but not bad at all. Some of that dirt is actually from the table here. Some writing there, I can't quite make it out. Let's see if I could zoom in on that a little bit. I don't know if I can. It's upside down, but I really can't read it anyway. But there you go. Sovietsky phonograph. Gramophone, sorry.